next, we have another panel, and we have Ms. Sylvia He, Associate Professor at the Chinese University of Hong Kong, and her panelists with us to share on e-mobility, harnessing policy and technology on our low-carbon journey. As electrification and transportation systems progresses globally, there is a need for us to prepare on all fronts to meet a new era of rapid and widespread adoption of EVs, in line with the Hong Kong government's target to attain zero vehicular emissions by 2050. Special thanks to Inchcape and EY for the support on the session. Let us welcome Sylvia and her panelists to the stage. And please note, as previous Q&A for all panel sessions at Rethink will be conducted via the official event app Cvent. You may start submitting your questions via the page for the session in Cvent from now until 5 minutes before the session.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our session on e-mobility. And here today, we're very excited to have 4 panelists with us. First, we'll have Nelson Chow from UI. And we also have David Fung from Inchcape, Mr. Michael Law from Transport Department, and Cliff Wu from Hong Kong EV Power. So I'm an associate professor from the Chinese University of Hong Kong. And today, our session really want to discuss what are the current obstacles and challenges and opportunities to develop e-mobility and promote EVs in Hong Kong, and what we can learn from overseas experience. And in particular, we also want to bring the government, industry, consulting stakeholders together to see what we can actually offer to move this momentum forward. So maybe before our discussion, we can briefly let our panelists introduce themselves. So may I start with Nelson?
Hi, everyone. My name is Nelson. I'm a partner based in Hong Kong for EY. So my expertise is on supply chain and operation consulting, and I do have a focus on e-mobility research as well. Thank you, Sylvia.
Hello, everyone. My name is David. I am responsible for the product and distribution in Inchcape, Greater China. So who are not familiar with Inchcape, we are a distributor, one of the largest, in fact, in Hong Kong, dealing with a lot of private cars, mass transport. So I have the job of dealing with a lot of the OEMs and the demand and supply side.
Hello, I'm Michael Law. I'm mainly responsible for 3 aspects of traffic in Hong Kong. The first one is road safety. We promulgate our standard about road safety. We investigate black spots and see what kind of improvements can be made on the roads. The second aspect is traffic control. If there are any problems about our traffic lights, then it is my problem. The third one is smart mobility. We are proposing a number of smart mobility measures to take Hong Kong as a smart city. And yes, that's it.
Hello, I'm Cliff Wu, General Manager of Hong Kong EV Power, one of the leading charging service provider and also the charging network operators in Hong Kong and China.
Okay, thank you all the panelists. And so today we may start with a question first. I actually also want to know what is the current sales number about EV in Hong Kong? Many people buying EVs, and what are the current trends? So David, can you give us some statistics?
Yep, sure. I mean, I do this on pretty much on a daily basis. So dealing with a lot of the OEMs or the manufacturers, we always have a very big challenge to explain how quick Hong Kong has changed throughout the past years. It's very unbelievable if you think about it. Looking back at 2019, where our total number of new vehicle registrations has always been about 30,000. Back in 2019, we were talking about close to about 7% of the total passenger cars being electric. But if you look at 2020, when 141 scheme started coming out, you can see that number actually grow quite significantly. In fact, it doubled in 2020 to about 15%. And then in 2021, which is when the new 141 scheme came out, with the EV roadmap being finalized for passenger cars, you can see that number actually growing exponentially. So even in 2021, we were already at 30%. So this was already very amazing when you benchmark ourselves in terms of growth compared to other leading markets. And now fast forward, looking to 2022, it's even more prominent. So even if you look at year to date, I think August, of the passenger car market, we're actually pretty much at close to 49, 50% in terms of electric vehicles. So our forecast right now, we're looking maybe by the end of the year, we'll reach about 55%. So just to put that into perspective, you think about other leading markets such as Norway, they're talking about 80%, and they're already like the global leaders in terms of country. So if you think about how Hong Kong has changed quite significantly, it's an amazing story. And if you're looking at an overall market, I think on EV, right now running on the road, there's about 35,000. So about close to 4% of all the vehicles that you see on the road right now are electric. So it's a very amazing journey in the past few years.
Okay. So how about the demographics? Do you see the EV buyers change over the years?
Yeah. So I think a lot of the EV customers are coming from a very wide range. And a lot of this is also driven by what products are in the market. So obviously, as most people probably who live in Hong Kong know, how Tesla has actually pretty much dominated the electric scene for quite a while. But as you see it, dealing with a lot of the other manufacturers starting to catch up, we now see Mercedes, BMW, a lot of the Korean brands picking up very quickly. So even for example, ourselves, such as Inchcape, we've just recently signed a distributor agreement with a China brand. So I think the next big thing is a lot of China brands will be coming into the Hong Kong market with EV.
Okay, very good. So I think that from the statistic, from the 4% right now to the 100% in 2035, there is still actually a long way to go. I think that's why we have this panel today to discuss what we can do to push this number from 4% to 100%. And so in this session, we actually have a couple of poll questions. So maybe we have our technician to help pull out the questions for the audience. And so we have a couple of questions, depending whether you are EV owners or not. So the first question is for non-EV owners. And so we want to know what are the main obstacles for you to buy an EV at this point. So if you are not considering an EV, and what may be the key concern for you? So we want to get your answer for now. And we can give you maybe a minute or, about a minute for this question. And this one, I believe you can click multiple choices. You can click more than one options. All right, so shall we move on to the next question? So if you are currently EV owners, if you have an EV already, so we want to know where you actually charge your car regularly. So is it near your residence, your workplace, shopping mall, government buildings, or others?
I guess as the audience is going through the survey, maybe I can just talk a little bit more about the deadline, about that EV roadmap. So the government's direction right now is by 2035, the new registrations of new vehicles need to be at 100%. So right now, I think we're at close to 50%, roughly 50%, maybe 55% by the end of the year. So really the goal is to go from that 55 to 100 by 2035.
Okay, thank you for the updates. Okay, so I think we will have some results. So maybe we can see our results from the audience. Okay, so we can see that here. I think our panel members also can see here, either screen. So the first one is the lack of proximal charging facilities, 40%. And then the next one will be installing personal chargers at residents. And following that, 20% high price of EV. And the driving range, well, surprisingly, is 0%. And how about the next for EV owners? For the EV owners, what is our answer? So, oh, okay, so about half-half, 50% around the residence, the other one around workplace. The other, also very surprisingly, zero. Okay, so how about Nelson? I know that you have written quite many articles, very interesting articles from LinkedIn and did a lot of interviews with local press. So I know that you are an expert about the charging infrastructure and strategies. So what's your view why so many people are concerning about the charging infrastructure right now in Hong Kong?
I think as the poll result indicated, right? I think as you also hear from what David said, right now we have around 4% of the total vehicle in Hong Kong is electric vehicle. But if you look at the latest sales number, right, almost 4 car you have 1 electric vehicle sales. So this trend is going to be increased over time. But right now we are just talking about private vehicle or passenger vehicle. I think you should also look further to commercial vehicle, but also public transportation fleet. When I say commercial vehicle, it will be like van or like truck. When I talk about public transportation, of course, is e-bus, e-taxi, or e-minivan. So these are all areas. But just think about from a private vehicle perspective. I don't think you buy a car for convenience, right? You want to buy for a peace of mind. You don't want to queue up for long and then wait for charging. But right now, we only have around 5,000 public charging stations in Hong Kong. So if you have only 2 choices, as the poll indicated, you either charge at home or you either find a public charging station. But if you live in Hong Kong, you understand the residential price is super expensive. Buying a car park slot in your residential case could easily cost you 1 million to 3 million Hong Kong dollar. So I think that would be a big obstacle. But if you look at the public charging station, it's only 5,000. And this 5,000 is also not evenly distributed in Hong Kong. So you could imagine most populated area like the CBD, you have more charging station. But if you are a remote area, they will have less charging station. So I think this is a bottleneck we need to resolve. The other point I want to highlight, even if you can queue up in a parking slot, we do have another problem, which is the cable plug. Right now, we have different standards. So I went to, let's say, a mall in a festival walk or in Cheung Kwan O. I'm so happy to find a parking slot, but I find that the plug is not usable because it is basically occupied by another car owner. So I think these are all important things. Just to summarize, EV is going to increase over time, and we do not have enough infrastructure on charging station. And the third one is basically we have to fix these international plug standard issues.
Okay, thanks for sharing. And understand that you also have done a lot of study about the Greater Bay Area and Greater China. And I think in some of our mainland Chinese cities, they have done very well about the promoting EV. What are the strategies about installing the public and private chargers?
Again, I think for EV, we could generalize to 3 types, right? One is private vehicle, the other is the commercial vehicle, and then the public transportation. I want to reverse a little bit. When we say incentive, I think the goal is to reduce the carbon emission for the city. So for Hong Kong, it's 2050. And then Hong Kong has a policy not to register any internal combustion engine car by 2035. So if you look at China, their carbon emission net zero goal is 2060. So, and if you look at the transportation sector, it contributes around 16% of the total carbon footprint just after the electricity generation. So making green transportation is a very key one. When you're talking about the initiative, I think in just a few days ago, China actually renewed and continue the incentive plan. So for any EV buyer, they have tax incentive. I'm not sure whether you go to Beijing or Shenzhen, right? In China, you have to yao hao for the license plate. So they actually, if you have a lucky draw for the license plate, so if you may not be registered the license plate, right? If you are not lucky enough. So they also give you an incentive if you're an EV buyer, that of course they will give you a priority. And also, if you look at the shopping mall, some of the shopping mall have a lot of EV allocated parking space. So from a convenience perspective, it incentivizes the user to go to buy EV because they have more parking space lot to choose from. And then I think if we talk about some of the commercial or public transportation, it's very interesting. In Hong Kong, we recently, like KMB, they have a couple of new e-buses, but they actually will have around 80 by end of the year. But if you look at Shenzhen, we have around 16,000 e-buses running in Shenzhen, and we have more than 22,000 electric taxi in Shenzhen. In Hong Kong, we don't even have any taxi on electric one. But of course, I think the government has some plan to pilot it in Lantau or somewhere. But I think it's a very good way to think about it, especially when we talk about Greater Bay Area, and also about this northern metropolis in Hong Kong. And right now, because of COVID, we do not have this ease of communication. But once the border reopens, we suggest that the mobility between Hong Kong and Shenzhen and also Greater Bay Area should be more relaxed. And there's some policy. Right now for Macau cars, you can go to Greater Bay Area if you apply it. There are some discussion whether Hong Kong car can apply for those licenses as well. If EV has a priority to given those license plates, I'm sure a lot of people will buy an electric car. So these are some of my observations related to China as well as the GBA.
Okay, thanks Nelson for sharing the overseas experience. So I think the Hong Kong government can have some policy incentive, but at the same time, the car park management as well as whether there are some priority policy to go over the border that also can be considered as well. When talk about public charging infrastructure, we have an expert here, Cliff, from Hong Kong EV Power. So your company has offering this infrastructure for many years and one of the leading market players. So in your view, what are the current latest technology in charging, and also how it can shorten people's charging time? And right now also there's both public and private chargers demand in Hong Kong. So what are the latest trend in Hong Kong?
Oh, thank you, Sylvia. I can say if you do not have any EV right now, just as a tool, you will think charging will take too long time or very difficult to find any places for your EV charging. Actually, from Davis and also from EVD, there are already 5,000 public charging points are already in Hong Kong, and the number is growing. You can see no matter some gas station company or some car dealership company or even some other company like us doing some charging technology will invest or will expanding the charging network to support this kind of charging demand. I love what Nelson said. Hong Kong, if you own a car, you may just pay maybe as much as maybe 200,000 or even more, but you may not have enough money to own your own car park, or even you have the money, you do not have one, since the ratio between the parking lots and the resident use is not 1:1. So to respond to Sylvia's question is charging take too long time? How you can make it faster? It depends. If you have your own private charger at home or at your parking lots or even at your workplace, the time of charging is you may not have any feeling, since you just stay at home or you just work in the office during your car charging. When you need your car to drive out there, it has already been fully charged. No matter it takes 8 hours, 6 hours, or 4 hours. But if you do not own your private chargers or you do not own your chargers at your workplace, you may have to consider how much energy can deliver to your car at the shortest time. at this moment, the fast charging technology is the one of the viable solution that can help you and to save your time, even save your money. Since now you have to go into the car park and pay the car parking fee. No matter you are charging or queuing up for a charges, you have to pay some more money after you fully charge your car. Of course, some of the shopping mall may give you some incentive or waive your car parking fee or some charging fee. But I can say in the future, you have to pay for your energy and as well as the car parking fee as well. So in this way, if you do not own your own car park or your own charging facility, you may have to consider some car model which can support fast charging. I think that David can give you a lot of the good solution with his team. And also, you may have to maybe to download some apps to search the suitable charging spot, which may facilitate your daily operation of your daily driving. Maybe you can have to check the availability of the quick charging just near your workspace or near your home, or even if you have your car, maybe you can spend 2 to 3 hours for charging. You can choose some maybe lower speed chargers. Actually, it can also provide sufficient power or sufficient energy to extend your range during your time spending in the shopping mall or even spending your time in your workspace. I think there's a lot of information you have to get before you reach your destination. You have well planned at this moment, but later on, if there are more and more charging infrastructure there, no matter it's fast charging or more charging points, even medium charging solution, all over the shopping mall. Actually, you do not have to think too much about how long your car to be charged or how fast you need. Actually, you may have some experience when you drive your first EV. So I can say I will recommend you to learn more. Actually, there's more and more information available in the market or even in the Facebook or in some other media, or you can just freely download our apps. We can show you a lot of information before you buy your own car.
Okay, thank you. I think speaking about user experience, some of the latest research in academic also shows that it's very important, incentivize or ease people's concern about using an EV. So for the non-EV owners right now, I don't know if our panelists have any suggestion how to give this experience or some trial to some potential buyers. Have any of you offer this kind of scheme?
Maybe I can talk a little bit. So I think Hong Kong right now has definitely have one of the most strongest PC schemes and a very rigid one for sure. If you look at a lot of other markets, for example, like our neighbors such as Singapore, they have a very clear roadmap and carbon neutrality plan as well, but they've incorporated a lot of other products such as hybrid into their mix as well, into their incentive scheme. Whereas Hong Kong, I think one of the reasons why we've managed to step up so high is because of very attractive incentive scheme, if you ask me. So for those who are not familiar, maybe something of $370,000 roughly is pretty much tax-free in terms of our market. So I think PC, we have something very clear, but I think what we're all looking forward to is also the CV, the commercial vehicle. There, it's going to be a bit more challenging, especially dealing with fleets and a lot of the complexity of the business. And there, I also think more so on the charging is going to be a very key success factor for a commercial vehicle. Because that it might not be a purely from an incentive point of view. That's going to be more driven by a lot of the infrastructure and being ready for this mass volume of conversion.
Okay, thanks, David. And so I think Cliff mentioned about download some app to check the information about chargers. And I wonder if the government, transport department has any plan to incorporate the chargers availability, more information in the Hong Kong e-mobility app?
Yes, in our HK mobility app, we show the EV charging stations available and whether a particular bay is free available for charging. But this kind of information is from the EPD actually. We just gather the information from them. And again, many of the charging stations are operated by private parties, and they require the participation or cooperation of the private parties to contribute their data to the government. And only then we can release the information to them. And I hope that all the operators can contribute to the opening of the data, like the ETA, estimated time of arrival of public transport. We fight a battle of many years, and now we finally have the ETA data of all public transport, nearly all, at least all franchise buses are available in our HKE mobility. It is only those MTR lines that are of short headway that perhaps there's no sense to provide ETA data. They arrive almost every 1 or 2 minutes. We are trying to release as much data to the public, especially also for EV owners.
Yeah, I think having more open data really also in line with Hong Kong's smart city strategies. And then over the years, you mentioned that there's a lot of challenges having operators share their data. So in your view, do you think it would be nice to have, for example, charging data to be openly available? I know Cliff will also have some thought about that. How about Michael? Do you think it can convince some operators, some chargers to provide that data as well?
Perhaps it would be easier than the release of ETA data of franchise buses or parking space vacancy data of shopping malls. It probably would be easier because I would believe private parties would like the government to advertise the availability of their charging station. I would believe that. Correct me if I'm wrong. But for say the vacancy data of parking malls, the parties have various kind of concerns, like perhaps if I release the data to the public, then my competitor will know it, or the public may turn to other malls that have parking vacancy, or public transport operators. I don't know their concern. Why we fought for so many years, and finally we have the ETA data for public transport. And one issue is that maybe the cost. In fact, the government incur a lot of cost in opening the data because before I took up this job, I thought using the cloud may be a cheap solution, as many cloud service providers try to persuade me it is very cheap, come to us. But then when I joined the cloud service, it is very, very expensive. And maybe when more people open their data, it will drive down the cost. I don't know.
Okay, thank you. So we know that in promoting EV is not just the government's effort. We also need a lot of private sectors to work with the government. And also in the government, the EPD is leading. And I wonder what are the panelists' view, how we can forge a stronger alliance to this public and private sector collaboration to promote EV?
Just as what we say and the good result of those, especially for those non-EV owners, they may have a lot of the misconception about owning an EV. There are a lot of the hassles, just like installing the chargers, finding charging ports. I think not only just giving the tax incentive to purchase a car, purchase an EV, but also the government can put some more effort on the public awareness and the education to let the public to know more about the benefit of an EV, no matter for the lower operating costs, and also there are some more connected technology that the EV can support or can facilitate, maybe just like what we say, the latest 5G technology. Later, there may be shared mobility and also some other new possibility that the EV can have. And also, for installing the public charging facility, actually the government has put a lot of money. They have at the latest they have put 3.5 billion to support the what we say the EV home charging subsidy scheme. But that may be a lot of the public residents, they do not know even the scheme what it is and how they can got the information or got the subsidy and what the benefit that they will have after their incorporated owners, if they join the scheme and then complete the installation, the infrastructure already, what they can got to facilitate the buying an EV. I think there are a lot of the message the government can do better to help promote the EV, not just giving the tax incentive. I think for the car manufacturer and also the dealership, they will have a very wide range of the product from the cheapest one or the expensive one. Of course, they have the highest performance or some other features they can provide. And we must have to use the public money to subsidize those buyers to buy a car. I don't think it is a long-lasting strategy. But if the public still has a lot of the problem in their mind, even you got a lot of tax incentive, the one-for-one replacement scheme, they did not choose. I think it is the.
Okay, thank you. Nelson?
Can I add on that? Your question is about how do we collaboratively between government, public side, private side to incentivize EV adoption, right? So I think we mentioned a lot about financial incentive, like the subsidy or tax incentive. But I think incentive can also classify something on non-financial. So if you look at overseas, how they adopt it, I think, David, you mentioned Norway. Norway do have a lot of good example. Maybe Hong Kong can take reference. First, maybe one is on toll. In Hong Kong, if you go through a tunnel, if you allow EV only lane, I think a lot of people go through Hong Soi, right? So you will have a lot of EV buyers, right, to buy that. The other thing is about innovation. I think you asked a question about technology. There are quite a lot of technology on EV, and these are incubated and designed by private companies. So think about EV as like a smartphone, right? On charging, in smartphone, you can have wireless charging. Car, you can also do induction wireless charging, meaning that you can park your car on a static car park, and then you can charge wirelessly. You don't have to use this cable, right? And then you also can, in Sweden, you can see they decided a role you can charge when you drive. So it is just like that, right? And then if you think about a mobile phone, if you can do portable electricity charging, right? In car, you can also do that. There are company in UK, you could have a portable suitcase size battery you could put in the luggage box, and then you could just go in and charge. And of course, you could see there's light pole in UK. You could find a lot of light pole, right? But you can also charge there. So there are many technology you can leverage, and maybe you could incubate some of these technology privately, and then work with the government, with the toll company, with the tunnel company, even with the land department. On commercial vehicles, I think the space is a problem. Think about bus, taxi. They are vehicles that make money. You have to charge them. So basically in Hong Kong, we lack of land. So I think the bus depot will have to get a lot of space for charging. Taxi is the same. So there are a lot of things that the government can work with the private owners to do.
Thank you. So I see the private sector have a lot of wisdom. So Michael, do you think we should have some intergovernmental unit or even the public-private unit? So bring in those wisdom from the private sector, from the industry, to work with the government. For example, we have the carbon neutrality task force from the government, but how about a task force for EV, bring in both the government and the industry wisdom together?
Yes, of course, it is good to have more dialogue between the government and the private sectors. Yes, sure. And I think there are some forums that the private sector can exchange views with the government and provide ideas to the government. Yes. And in fact, we talk about the license fee, less license fees for EVs, and also we talk about the subsidy for installing chargers in public parking space. Yes, we have a lot of measures to promote this, and I just learned that maybe a separate link for EV for tunnels, but probably it will create serious congestion, I must say. But maybe we can consider it later, but perhaps not now. We are considering congestion charging at this moment to charge higher fare during peak hours, and we are for the improvement to the environment. We will soon roll out the people tolling systems, like the auto toll. Car drivers don't have to stop at the toll booth and pay. Instead, everything is done remotely. We have RFID tag to be released to the public, to the car owners, and then we have RFID reader at our tunnels. Everything will be done remotely so that you don't have to stop. And without stopping, perhaps there will be less emission from the vehicles. And also we are improving our junctions through we install sensors in our junctions so that our green times can respond directly to the amount of vehicles going to the junctions. They are given only sufficient but not excessive green light. And again, this may help improving the junctions so that they won't have to stop at the junction frequently. And again, this will contribute to the environment. I think I also heard about the priorities. In fact, we do have one priority scheme, which is the driving to Lantau scheme. If you are an EV owner, you will be under a separate quota. You do not need to compete with the non-EV owners. And because the percentage of EV is still very small compared with other vehicles, you have a much better chance to get a permit to drive to Lantau to enjoy the rural area there. Yes, we do have some priority given to EVs. If there are any good ideas that we should do more, then I'm very willing to hear that and will consider.
Yeah, we do need the collective wisdom. So I got very good to know that there will be some priority policy given from the government. And right now, I understand that a lot of EV owners are really enjoying using the EV because it's free charging. So, but this one, we know that it will end very soon because from this energy pricing perspective, it may not be the most efficient one. So, Cliff, what do you think? Do you think we should end this free charging scheme, and when shall we do it?
Yeah, I can say from the association of some commercial companies, of course, we welcome this new policy. I think everyone should have to think about it. Should we only using the public money to serve those EV buyers for the energy? I think it should not be the case in the long run. In the very initial stage, the government has to incentivize those EV owners to change their car to be an EV. I think it is one of the solution or one of the strategy the government can use, but for a normal it doesn't. And also, if the government using the public money to providing the free charging, it will slow down the investment of the private company to invest their own charging service. This, of course, if you have time, you may have to choose the free charging rather than a paid one. So for the private company point of view, I'm not very easy to compete with the government, the capital to providing the better charging service. Even we have some more just like the apps or some other functions like reservation, or even we may have some more fast charging technology we can provide. But all of this need money. If I invest, I have to at least to pay back what we have to invest. If the free charging policy is still there, it will slow down the development. If, of course, I can say if the free charging policy ends maybe today, maybe in next 5 years, there may be 50,000 chargers already there. Yeah. So it depends on what the governments do. But in another area is not only the government will provide free charging, but also there are some land developer, they would like to attract some visitors just a shopping mall. They will subsidize those charging fee for you, but they have to pay the power company, of course. I think this is their own commercial strategy. So to respond to your question, the free charging scheme for the government, I think using the public money, it should end. But for the commercial sector, they have their own decision to provide such kind of the solution for their own purposes.
Okay, thank you. So, David, do you see that if we end this free charging scheme, it will affect the sales of EV?
I think it definitely will have an impact because overall, a lot of consumers are looking for different things. I think it's never only just one aspect, but charging has definitely been one of the big barriers. And for encouraging people, that was always one of the big reasons why people would choose to go EV. So I think, but I also agree that down the road there needs to be some changes. I think for EV to succeed or carbon neutrality succeed, there needs to be many, many pieces of the puzzle coming together, and they need to happen at the right time, at the right moment. Because if it does not happen, then there's always going to be backlash from it. So I think it'll definitely impact, but we need to handle it carefully with the government and how to transition to start charging.
Okay, thank you. So we have received a couple of questions from the audience. The first one is, what challenges do we foresee in transitioning to 100% EV? Should we be charging station or some battery innovation technology or some stored access? So how can we adjust these issues?
I would believe the main challenge will be the commercial vehicles. For private cars, I think the technology is quite mature. The driving range is very long in here, and in fact, many of my colleagues are buying EVs. And as I mentioned, the government is subsidizing the installation of EV chargers at home, and also there are concessions in GFA, the gross floor area in developments. If their parking space are underground and have charging facilities, then there will be a GFA concession. These are all kind of things that I think will facilitate the adoption of private cars, e-private cars. But for commercial vehicles, we face a lot of problems, and some trial is being conducted, say the single-decker bus and then the double-decker bus, and also we have all sorts of heavy vehicles. Also, we have the GMBs, the minibus, and and I'm not sure whether the technology will be mature enough to support electrical commercial vehicles. But there are other technologies coming which might be promising. Hydrogen fuel cell, which may be another alternative to help the adoption of environmental friendly vehicles.
Okay, thank you. I think, Michael, your question actually touched upon the second question from the audience. As we so far talk a lot about the private cars, but how about other transport modes? How about taxi? We have, I think, so far we have little progress about taxi, and but the government, I guess, and also the industry have plans to promote e-taxi. So, what are the panelists? What's your view about e-taxi? Do you think we have a chance?
So let me talk about a bit more about definitely CEV is more challenging, and taxi being the backbone of a lot of the transportation is what I mentioned earlier is a lot we need to do the right things at the right time. So obviously the direction is very clear, but there are some industries, especially in taxi, for example, is one that we cannot force because there's still a lot of challenges. It's not only a product issue because it also involves a lot of other different factors. You have people operating taxi, you have taxi drivers, their behaviors. So it's not something you can easily force through. Right now, I can already tell you I foresee issues already with the product range. For a light consumer, regular consumer passenger car, it's maybe what was sufficient, and that's why when the survey, range was not a very big issue. But in the world of taxi, range is definitely one of the most critical parts. And if you're talking about anxiety for consumer drivers, if you're talking about taxi, it's even worse, right? If you think about it, if you're down to, 50 or 100 kilometers, do you take that next customer or not, right? There's always going to be a lot of concern. Charging infrastructure is also one that's very, very critical as well, that hasn't been solved yet. So I think we need to make the right policies and push the right things at the right time, but I think CEV and taxi is one where we do need a little bit more time to explore.
Right, I think I totally agree. I think when the technology is ready, things will happen. And I understand that our time's running up. How about each of our panelists give some final words, take-home message for the audience? We have talked about how to promote e-mobility, but eventually we will want to make our transport sector more sustainable, more carbon neutral. So what is your message to the audience today? Shall we start from Nelson?
Yep, I can do that. I think today we talk a lot about the challenges, especially on the charging. But I think in order to achieve our strategic goal, which is helping the transport sector to go green, so I think we have to think broader about the EV supply chain ecosystem. So what I mean is the major carbon emission is actually from electricity generation. So first, no matter how EV you buy, the electricity power have to come from green sources, not from fossil fuels, not from coal. So that has to be fixed, right? But I think government is doing that. The other is when you do EV manufacturing, right now we have, of course, this major OEM like Tesla, Mercedes-Benz, BMW. But if you look at China, the product range is actually higher. So the cheapest mini EV maybe cost, 30,000 Hong Kong dollar. And there are a lot of people driving it. And they also have innovation about how to manufacture those EVs. So we should import more environmental friendly EVs from that perspective. So customer has more range, product range to buy from. Then we talk about the infrastructure, right? So we talk about the charging station, wireless charging, and so on. That has to be done. The fourth one is actually on repair and maintenance. So far on EV, all these EV have to go back to the original equipment manufacturer. We do not have enough skills people, and you basically may not trust them to can fix your EV. EV is actually quite dangerous. The lithium battery inside can be highly flammable. Even the firemen cannot put them off. Right? So you can see once the car burn, you actually cannot put them off. So I think we have to think about the EV maintenance as well. Lastly, I think that is my key message. The EV battery recycling. In Hong Kong, we don't even have one recycling plant to collect all these lithium battery. So can the government or the private sector to think about how to recycle this? Right now, we have around 35,000 EV in the market. What if in 2 years' time, right? What if in 3 years' time? How do we deal with this lithium battery? So I think we have to think from a more holistic thing on how to tackle this problem.
Yeah, thank you for sharing the whole ecosystem of EV, the cradle to cradle thinking. How about you, David?
Nelson brought up a very good point, right? I mean, I think it's clear that our ultimate goal is carbon neutrality by 2050. But in the way, on the milestones that we get there, even with EV as the only solution that we foresee right now, it's still causing issues because, I mean, aside from just transportation being the number 2 contributor to emissions, actually, electricity generation is actually the number 1. I think it's like close to 60% of Hong Kong right now, and transportation is only 20%. So really, we're just shifting that burden to another sector. So that's why I think that my key delivery is that we need to do the right things at the right time when we have right solutions. It's very difficult to force something through without thinking it very thoroughly. So as we set these policies, we really need to have an open mind on what kind of solutions we can use, and maybe not necessarily only just rely on one. For example, as we go through, we're encountering hiccups actually from a lot of OEMs is when there's a lot of other markets coming out from COVID and there's a lot of recovery in the markets. We see that globally as an issue, there's less supply and there's not enough supply to fulfill demand. Therefore, if we rely a lot on just purely on EV, then we encounter a situation where demand might not necessarily be able to fulfill, supply. Sorry. So these are things I think we need to set better milestones along the policy and do the right things at the right time.
Thank you for your message. Michael?
I only have a very short message, which I hope will not be too discouraging to you. My message is use public transport more, drive less, more cycling, walk more. That's it.
That's a very important and powerful message. Cliff?
Yeah, I can say that it is just a happy problem. Everyone has to put their one step more to even there's some difficulty in the very initial stage to make the change. But we are all secondary that we have to do. Don't be too late. That's my verse.
Okay, thank you. Don't be too late. All right, I think that is our conclusion for our panel. And thank you for all the 4 panelists for sharing, and thank you for joining this session. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia, David, Cliff, Michael, and Nelson for the insightful sharing. And yeah, there's definitely a lot of food for thought on how to up the penetration rate of e-vehicles and also especially the ecosystem and infrastructure to support it.